The morning sun rose over New Hanseong like it had for the past 20 years. Park Min-ho stood on his office balcony, watching the golden light spread across the endless green fields. The sight never got old. What started as a dead rock in space was now home to 8 million people and fed 12 star systems. Another perfect day, Kim Nari said, joining him with 2 cups of coffee. As the agricultural director, she had every right to be proud. The terraforming project was her baby. Too perfect, maybe, Park Min-ho replied, taking his cup. As colonial administrator, he worried about things others didn't see. I got another message from Earth yesterday. The Kelnari are making noise again. Kim Nari frowned. What kind of noise? The usual. Claims about ancient territorial rights. But this time it sounds different, more serious. Down in the fields, farmers were starting their daily work. Human families worked alongside alien refugees who had fled wars in other sectors. The Vextar clicked and buzzed as they tended the root vegetables. The aquatic mordoons splashed in the irrigation channels. Even a few crystalline kethlins sparked in the sunlight as they helped with the mineral fertilizers. We've built something beautiful. Here, Kim Nari said. They can't just take it away. Park Min-ho wished he shared her confidence. In his 20 years as a diplomat, he had learned that beautiful things were often the first to be destroyed in wars. His daughter, Choi Hyuna, burst into the office. At 25, she ran the colony's communications with the energy of someone who still believed the universe was fair. Dad, you need to hear this, she said, her face pale. We just received a transmission from the Kelnari Empire. Park Min-ho set down his coffee. Put it through. The holographic display showed a Kelnari. Officer! They looked like upright lizards with scales that shifted color when they were angry. This one's scales were deep red. Humans of New Hanseong, the alien said in accented galactic standard. I am Admiral Vorthak of the Kelnari Empire. This sector belongs to us by right of ancient claim. You have 72 hours to evacuate all human presence from this world and surrounding systems. Park Min-ho stepped forward. Admiral, I'm Park Min-ho, Colonial Administrator. We've held legal claim to this system for 20 years. The Galactic Council recognizes our rights here. Vorthak's scales darkened. Your Galactic Council means nothing to us. Your species is weak. You hide behind laws and treaties like children behind their mothers. We take what we want by strength. You will comply or face annihilation. Perhaps we can discuss this, Park Min-ho said. There's plenty of space in this galaxy for both our species. The Kelnari Admiral laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Discuss? With prey animals, you have 72 hours. The transmission ended. Kim Nari stared at the empty display. They can't be serious. 8 million people? Where would we even go? They're serious, said a new voice from the doorway. Lee Jae-won, head of the Colonial Defense Force, looked grim. I've been monitoring Kelnari fleet movements. They have over 200 ships heading this way. Park Min-ho felt cold. How many ships do we have? 12 modified cargo vessels and 6 orbital platforms. They're not warships, Min-ho. They're barely armed. The next 72 hours passed like a nightmare. Park Min-ho sent desperate messages to Earth, to the Galactic Council, to anyone who might help. The responses were all the same. Too far away, not enough time, sorry, but there's nothing we can do. Lee Jae-won worked around the clock to prepare defenses. He moved civilians to underground shelters. He positioned their tiny fleet between the planet and the expected arrival point of the Kelnari ships. Kim Nari coordinated the evacuation of the most vulnerable. Children, elderly, pregnant women, anyone who could fit on the few transport ships they had. But 8 million people, and only a handful of ships, it was impossible. We should surrender, Kim Nari said on the second night. Maybe they'll let our people live. You don't know the Kelnari like I do, Lee Jae-won replied. He had fought in border conflicts before coming to New Hanseong. They don't take prisoners. They take slaves if you're lucky. Park Min-ho made the hardest decision of his life. We fight. Even if we can't win, we make them pay for every life they take. On the third day, the Kelnari fleet arrived. 200 sleek warships dropped out, of hyperspace like hungry sharks. Their hulls were black as space, covered in weapons that could crack planets. The human defense fleet looked like toys in comparison. Admiral Vorthak's face appeared on every screen in the colony. Humans, you have had your warning. Now you will. See what happens to species that displease the Kelnari Empire. The first shot came without warning. A beam of pure energy lanced down from orbit and struck the northern continent. In seconds, the entire landmass was glass. 2.5 million. People died instantly. Choi Hyuna screamed. Through the communications arrays, she could hear the death cries of entire cities. Families she knew, friends she had grown up with, all gone in a flash of light. Surrender, Park Min-ho shouted into his transmitter. We surrender. Please, no. More killing. Vorthak's laughter filled the airwaves. Too late for that, Administrator. You should have left when you had the chance. Lee Jae-won's defense fleet fought bravely. They managed to destroy 3 Kelnari ships before being overwhelmed. Lee Jae-won himself went down with his flagship, ramming it into a Kelnari cruiser. The orbital bombardment began in earnest. Cities vanished in balls of fire. Oceans boiled. The atmosphere itself began to burn. In her underground laboratory, Kim Nari made a desperate choice. She sealed 800 children in the deepest emergency. Bunkers with enough food and air recyclers to last months, maybe years. Stay quiet, she told them as she locked the blast doors. Stay hidden. Someone will come for you. She never saw them again. A Kelnari patrol found her 20 minutes later. Park Min-ho tried one last time to negotiate. He met Admiral Vorthak on the surface in the ruins of what had been the capital city. Please, he begged. The children. At least spare the children. Vorthak studied him like an interesting insect. Your children will make good slaves, Administrator. The strong ones anyway. The weak ones. Well, my soldiers need target practice. Park Min-ho died reaching for the Admiral's throat. Choi Hyuna lasted longer. She kept broadcasting, hoping someone would hear. A merchant ship, a patrol vessel, anyone who could tell the galaxy what was happening. This is New Hanseong. She screamed into her transmitter as explosions shook the communications tower. They're killing everyone. The Kelnari are murdering. Civilians, please, someone has to know, someone has to remember. A pulse rifle ended her transmission. Only one human witnessed everything and lived to tell about it. Han Se-woo was 16 years old, working alone at a sensor station in the mountains when the attack began. He watched his world die through military cameras and sensor feeds. He recorded it all. The orbital bombardment, the landing parties hunting, survivors for sport, Admiral Vorthak's soldiers laughing as they shot children, the systematic destruction of every human monument and cultural site. Most importantly, he recorded Vorthak's final broadcast to the galaxy. The Kelnari Admiral stood in the ruins of New Hanseong's capital, surrounded by the bodies of Park Min-ho's family. Let this be a lesson to all inferior species, Vorthak said, his scales bright with satisfaction. The Kelnari Empire claims what it desires. We take what we want, when we want it. Your laws mean nothing. Your treaties are paper. Only strength matters in this universe, and you are all weak. He kicked Park Min-ho's body for the cameras. This is what happens to those who resist us. Han Se-woo waited in the mountains for 3 days after the Kelnari fleet left. The planet was dead. The oceans were poison. The sky was ash. Nothing moved except the wind through empty cities. On the 4th day, a human merchant vessel picked up his distress signal. Captain Song-mina found him half dead from radiation poisoning, clutching a data chip containing everything he had recorded. What happened here? She asked, staring at the devastated world. Han Se-woo looked up at her with eyes that had seen too much. They killed us all. Every single one. And they laughed. The merchant ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying the last survivor of New Hanseong toward Earth. In its cargo hold, a data chip contained images that would change the galaxy forever. Behind them, New Hanseong spun silently in space, a tomb for 8 million souls. Captain Song-mina's merchant ship arrived at Earth 3 weeks after leaving the dead world of New Hanseong. She had spent those weeks watching Han Se-woo recover from radiation sickness and listening to his story. Each time he told it, she felt Her anger grew colder and harder. The ship docked at Luna Station, Earth's main orbital port. Song Mina had sent a priority message ahead, but she wasn't prepared for what waited at the airlock. General Song Kyung himself stood there, flanked by a full honor guard. "Captain Song," the general said, "I understand you have something for us." Han Siwoo stepped forward, still pale and thin from his ordeal. In his hands, he carried the data, chip like it was made of fire. 8 million people, sir. They killed 8 million people. General Song Kyung took the chip with steady hands. "We'll see that justice is done, son. I promise you that." The footage played in the UN Security Council chamber 6 hours later. Diplomats from every human world watched in stunned silence as Nu Hanseong died. They saw the orbital bombardment that turned cities to glass. They saw Kelnari soldiers hunting children for sport. They saw Admiral Vorthak's contemptuous message to the galaxy. When it was over, the chamber was completely quiet. Secretary General Bae Tae-hyun stood slowly. "The motion before us is clear. Total war protocols. All in favor?" Every hand went up. Motion carried. As of this moment, humanity is at war with the Kelnari Empire. Total war. No quarter asked, none given. Within hours, the news spread across all 47 human worlds. On every planet, in every city, the footage from Nu Hanseong played on public screens. Millions of people watched their fellow humans die, watched children murdered for entertainment, watched an entire world turn to ash. The reaction was unlike anything in human history. Dr. Yoon Ji-ho was working late in his weapons research lab on Mars when the declaration came through. He had spent his career developing defensive technologies, peaceful uses for military science. That night he began designing weapons that could crack planets. "Sir," his assistant said, "are you sure about this? These designs, they're terrifying." "Doctor," Yoon looked up from his holographic displays where he was modeling a quantum torpedo capable of triggering solar flares. "Good, they should be terrifying. The Kelnari need to learn what terror really means." Captain Kang Minji commanded Earth's first fleet, 24 ships designed for exploration and patrol duties. The morning after the declaration, she received new orders. Her fleet was now the first element of humanity's war machine. "Ma'am," her first officer said, "we're getting reports from shipyards across the system. They're working around the clock. New designs, new weapons, things I've never seen before." Kang Minji watched construction feeds from orbit above Earth. Dozens of new shipyards were already under construction. Assembly lines that had been building cargo haulers were retooling for warships. "How long until we have a real fleet?" she asked. "At current production rates? 6 months for 100 ships. A year for 1,000. Not fast enough? Double the production lines. Triple them. I don't care what it costs." The order went out across human space. Every resource, every factory, every scientific mind turned toward a single purpose: the destruction of the Kelnari Empire. But humanity had secrets they had never shared with the galaxy. Ambassador Oh Seong-jin had represented humanity in the Galactic Council for 15 years. He was known as a reasonable man, a diplomat who preferred words to weapons. That man died with Nu Hanseong. He requested an emergency session of the full council. Representatives from 200 species gathered in the great chamber above the neutral world of Nexus Prime. "Fellow beings," Oh Seong-jin said, his voice calm and cold. "Humanity has a message for the galaxy." The holographic display showed the flag of Earth, but it was black now, not blue. A mourning flag. "The Kelnari Empire has committed genocide against human civilians. They have murdered 8 million innocent people, including children. They have declared that might makes right, that law and treaty mean nothing." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Many species had heard rumors, but this was the first official confirmation. "Humanity's response is simple," Oh Seong-jin continued. "We declare total war against the Kelnari Empire. We will not stop until every Kelnari warship is destroyed, every Kelnari world is conquered, and every Kelnari who participated in this genocide is dead." The Vextar representative clicked nervously. "Surely, Ambassador, you don't mean literally every single one." Oh, Seongjin's words cut like ice. The Kelnari wanted to teach the galaxy about strength. Very well. They are about to learn what human strength really means. This is madness, protested the Mordun delegate. The Kelnari have the largest fleet in this sector. You cannot possibly. You don't know what we can do. Oh, Seongjin said quietly. None of you do. We've been hiding our true capabilities for 50 years, hoping never to use them. That hope died with New Hanseong. He activated another display. It showed industrial statistics from human space. But the numbers were impossible. Production capacity hundreds of times higher than any species had imagined. Population figures that dwarfed the official counts. How? Whispered the Kethlin representative. Automation, artificial intelligence, technologies we kept secret because we were afraid they would make you fear us. Oh, Seongjin smiled, and it was a terrible thing to see. Congratulations. Now you have something to actually fear. The session erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions, demands, threats. Oh, Seongjin let them rage for exactly 1 minute, then raised his hand for silence. You have awakened something that should have remained sleeping, he said. For 20 years, we have been the galaxy's merchants and farmers, your friendly neighbors who always paid their debts and never caused trouble. That humanity is gone. You killed it when you let the Kelnari murder our children. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and to any species considering alliance with the Kelnari Empire, remember New Hanseong. Remember what happens to those who make themselves our enemies. The chamber fell silent as humanity's ambassador walked away. Back on Earth, the first war fleet was already taking shape. In shipyards hidden in the asteroid belt, construction swarms worked day and night. Ships rolled off the production lines faster than any alien species could have believed possible. General Song Kyung stood in the fleet command center, watching the tactical displays. Numbers scrolled past. Ship counts, weapon loadouts, troop deployments. Sir, his aide said, we're receiving volunteer applications from every human world. Military service, ship crews, support personnel. Everyone wants to fight. How many applicants? 700 million and counting. Song Kyung nodded grimly. Start processing them. We're going to need everyone. Sir, there's something else. Our deep space sensors have detected Kelnari fleet movements. They're massing ships at their forward bases. Good. Let them come. The more ships they send, the more we can destroy. On Luna Station, Han Si-woo stood in the memorial hall that had been built for New Hanseong's dead. 8 million names covered the walls in letters of gold. At the center, a holographic flame burned eternally. Dr. Lim Yunbi, a xenopsychologist, found him there. How are you holding up, son? Han Si-woo stared at the names. I keep thinking about the children in Kim Nari's bunkers. What if they're still alive? What if they're waiting for rescue that will never come? We'll find them, Dr. Lim said. When we retake New Hanseong, we'll search every inch of that planet. And if they're dead? Dr. Lim was quiet for a long moment. Then we make the Kelnari pay for everyone. The old Han Si-woo, the boy who had tended sensor equipment and dreamed of becoming an engineer, was gone. In his place stood someone harder, colder. Someone who had seen evil and sworn to destroy. I want to join the fleet, he said. You're only 16. I'm the only survivor of New Hanseong. I have the right. Dr. Lim looked at him for a long time. Finally, she nodded. I'll speak to General Song Kyung. Across human space, the war machine gathered momentum. Factory worlds that had built farming. Equipment now produced plasma cannons. Mining operations that had extracted raw materials for construction now fed ammunition plants. Scientists who had studied peaceful applications of quantum physics now designed weapons that could unmake matter itself. And in the deepest, most secret laboratories, Dr. Yoon Ji-ho worked on projects that would have horrified the man he had been 6 months ago. Stellar engineering weapons, biosphere killers, planet crackers. Sir, his assistant said, these weapons, using them, would be genocide. Dr. Yoon didn't look up from his calculations. The Kelnari started this war with genocide. We're going to finish it the same way. In the Kelnari Empire, Admiral Vorthak received reports of human fleet movements with amusement. The prey animals were gathering their strength. How touching. How many ships do they have? He asked his intelligence. Officer, unknown, sir. Our spies report massive construction efforts, but the humans are using some kind of jamming technology. Our sensors can't get accurate counts. It doesn't matter. Humans are weak. They talk about peace and cooperation, hide behind laws and treaties. They don't have the stomach for real war. Yes, sir. Shall I deploy the Third Fleet to intercept them? Vorthak bared his teeth in what passed for a smile. No. Let them come to us. When they see the might of the Kelnari Empire, they'll surrender like the cowards they are. He was about to learn how wrong he could be. The human war fleet arrived at the Torthmai system 6 weeks after leaving Earth. Captain Kang Minji stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching her tactical displays with cold satisfaction. Intelligence reports had been accurate. The Kelnari Third Fleet was waiting for them. Enemy contacts, her tactical officer reported. 400 ships in standard battle formation. Only 400? Kang Minji almost smiled. Admiral, Vorthak is getting careless. The Kelnari had made their first mistake. They expected humans to fight like other species, ship against ship, strength against strength. They didn't understand that humans had spent centuries studying the art of war. All ships, Kang Minji broadcast, execute pattern Delta 7, swarm formation, show them what we learned from Earth's history. The human fleet dissolved into chaos, or what looked like chaos to Kelnari eyes. 2,000 ships scattered in all directions, moving in seemingly random patterns. It looked like panic. Admiral Korthek, commanding the Kelnari Third Fleet, laughed when he saw the human formation. Look at them run. Just like I predicted, the moment they see real warriors, they lose their nerve. Sir, his tactical officer said uncertainly, they're not running away, they're surrounding us. Too late, Korthek realized the trap. The scattered human ships weren't fleeing. They were positioning themselves for a coordinated attack from every direction at once. Like a swarm of angry insects, they closed in from all sides. All ships attack formation, Korthek ordered, but it was already over. The human ships struck like lightning. They didn't try to match the larger Kelnari vessels gun for gun. Instead, they used speed and numbers, darting in to deliver precise strikes before dancing away. 10 human ships would focus on one Kelnari cruiser, hitting it from multiple angles until its shields collapsed. But the real shock came when the humans revealed their new weapons. Dr. Yoon Jiho's quantum torpedoes tore through Kelnari armor, like paper. Plasma cannons designed by Earth's finest minds melted hull metal in seconds. And when a Kelnari ship was disabled, the humans didn't just destroy it, they captured it, pulling the crew off and adding the vessel to their own fleet. Impossible! Korthek screamed as his flagship shuddered under attack. These are merchant ships, farmers and traders. His communications officer looked up in terror. Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies. It's a human. The main screen flickered to life, showing Captain Kang Minji's face. Behind her, the bridge of the Vengeance hummed with quiet efficiency. Admiral Korthek, she said in perfect Kelnari. I am Captain Kang Minji of the Human Navy. In case you're wondering, those weren't merchant ships you destroyed at New Hanseong. Those were colonists, farmers, children. Korthek bared his teeth. What do you want, human? Justice. Kang Minji's voice was cold as space. For 8 million dead, for children hunted like animals, for an entire world turned to glass, you cannot win. The Empire has thousands of ships, had thousands of ships. By the time we're finished, the Kelnari Empire will be a footnote in galactic history. The battle raged for 3 hours. When it was over, the Kelnari Third Fleet no longer existed. 300 ships destroyed, 100 captured. Only a handful escaped to carry news of the defeat. But Kang Minji wasn't finished. As the surviving Kelnari ships fled toward their home, space, she opened a channel to the entire galaxy. This is Captain Kang Minji of the Human Navy, broadcasting to all species. Today, the Kelnari Empire learned their first lesson about human warfare. This was not revenge. This was not even anger. This was simply the beginning. She gestured to The debris field that had been the Third Fleet. The Kelnari wanted to teach the galaxy about strength. Very well, let me teach them about human strength. A new type of ship emerged from the human fleet, a massive vessel that dwarfed even the largest Kelnari dreadnought, the UES Prometheus, humanity's first stellar engineering platform. This is what happens to worlds that murder our children, Kang Minji said calmly. The Prometheus fired once. A beam of concentrated energy struck the system's star, and the star screamed. Solar flares erupted across its surface, radiation bursts that would sterilize every planet in the system within hours. The Torthmai system is now uninhabitable, Kang Minji announced. Consider it a memorial to New Hanseong. Any Kelnari civilians in the system have 6 hours to evacuate before the radiation reaches fatal levels. The galaxy watched in horror as an entire star system died. This wasn't war as they knew it. This was something new and terrible. On the Kelnari homeworld of Keltar Prime, Emperor Zarmoth received the news in stunned silence. The Third Fleet, gone. An entire star system, uninhabitable, and the humans were just getting started. How is this possible? He demanded of his advisors. They're supposed to be weak, peaceful. General Vextar, his military commander, studied the battle recordings with growing dread. My lord, they're using tactics we've never seen. Swarm formations, coordinated strikes, weapons that ignore our shielding technology. They're still just humans. We outnumber them 10-1. Do we? General Vextar pulled up intelligence reports. My lord, we don't actually know how many ships they have. Our spies have been sending contradictory reports. Some say hundreds, others say thousands. Then send more spies. We've tried. 13 agents sent to human space in the last month. None have reported back. Emperor Zarmoth felt the first cold touch of fear. What do you recommend? Immediate mobilization of the entire fleet. Every ship, every world. If we're going to fight humanity, we need to do it with everything we have. But even as the Kelnari mobilized, humans were already moving to their next target. Intelligence reports from captured Kelnari ships had revealed the location of their forward supply bases. Cut off the supply lines and even the mightiest fleet would starve. Captain Park Soon-ho, younger brother of the murdered administrator of New Hanseong, commanded the human strike force that hit the Vor-Nexal supply depot. Unlike his diplomatic brother, Sun-ho had joined the military years ago. He understood violence. The depot was defended by 50 ships and an orbital fortress. The humans attacked with 200 vessels, but they didn't come alone. Alongside the human ships flew vessels from 3 alien species, the Vextar, Morden, and Kethlin refugees who had lived on New Hanseong. Why are you helping us? Sun-ho asked the Vextar ship captain over the communication link. The insectoid's answer was simple. The Kelnari killed our children too. The battle for Vor-Nexal was over in an hour. But what happened afterward sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The humans didn't just destroy the supply depot. They captured every Kelnari soldier alive and put them on trial. Military tribunals broadcast live to the entire galaxy, where Kelnari officers were confronted with evidence of war crimes. You personally ordered the execution of civilians on New Hanseong, Captain Sun-ho said to a captured Kelnari colonel. Children as young as 5 years old. The colonel's scales shifted nervously. We were following orders. So were the guards at human concentration camps centuries ago. They were executed too. The trials ended with mass executions, not the quick deaths of battle but formal justice carried out with cold precision. The galaxy watched as humanity showed they were no longer the forgiving species they had once been. But the real message came when Emperor Zarmoth tried to negotiate through back channels. Ambassador Oh Seong-jin received the Kelnari envoy on a neutral station. The alien was nervous, his scales pale with fear. The Emperor wishes to discuss terms, the envoy said. Perhaps some form of compensation for the regrettable incident at New Hanseong. Oh Seong-jin stared at him for a long moment. Regrettable incident? Yes, well. Mistakes were made. Admiral Vorthok exceeded his authority. Perhaps we could arrange Some sort of reparations? No. The simple word hung in the air like a death sentence. I beg your pardon? No negotiations, no terms, no surrender. The Kelnari Empire will be completely destroyed. Every ship, every world, every Kelnari who raised a weapon against humanity will die. This is not negotiable. The envoy's scales went completely white. You're talking about genocide? Yes. Oh Seongjin's voice was calm. Just like you committed at New Hanseong. The only difference is, we'll be more thorough. News of the failed negotiations spread quickly. Other species began to panic. If humanity could reject peace talks, if they were truly committed to total war, then the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted forever. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. 200 species gathered to discuss what to do about the human threat. They've gone mad, declared the Zephyrian representative. They're talking about destroying an entire species. Perhaps, said the crystalline delegate thoughtfully, but they're also winning. Every battle, every engagement. The Kelnari haven't stopped them once. We have to act, the Mordun ambassador insisted. Form a coalition. Stop them before they decide we're next. But other voices spoke up. Species that had suffered under Kelnari aggression in the past. Worlds that had been conquered or threatened. For them, humanity's war wasn't a threat. It was hope. The Kelnari destroyed my home system 60 years ago, said the Talarian delegate. 2 billion dead, the council did nothing. 2 years into the war, the Kelnari Empire was dying. Of their original 300 worlds, only 50 remained under their control. Their mighty fleets had been reduced to scattered remnants hiding in deep space. But Emperor Zarmoth still held their homeworld of Keltar Prime, protected by the most powerful fortress in the galaxy. General Song Kyung stood before the tactical display in Earth's war room, studying the intelligence reports. Keltar Prime was surrounded by defense platforms, orbital fortresses, and minefields that stretched for millions of kilometers. Taking it would cost thousands of human lives. Sir, his aide reported, Admiral Kang Minji's fleet is in position. 3,000 ships plus support vessels from our alien allies. And Dr. Yoon's special weapons? Ready for deployment, though he warns the effects might be permanent. Song Kyung nodded grimly. The Kelnari made this choice when they murdered New Hanseong. Begin the operation. In the depths of space around Keltar Prime, the human fleet prepared for the largest battle of the war. But this wouldn't be like previous engagements. This time, humanity was bringing weapons that would horrify even themselves. Captain Kang. Minji walked through the corridors of the UES Vengeance, checking on her crew. They had been fighting for 2 years now, and it showed. These weren't the same people who had left Earth with hope in their hearts. War had changed them, made them harder. In the ship's memorial hall, she found Han Siwoo standing before a holographic display showing New Hanseong as it had been. Green fields, happy families, children playing in the sunshine. Are you ready for this? She asked. Han Siwoo, now 20 and a decorated officer, nodded without taking his eyes off the display. I've been ready since the day they died. This might be the last battle. After Keltar Prime falls, the Empire is finished. Good. His voice was cold. Then maybe the nightmares will stop. Across the fleet, similar conversations were taking place. Humans who had lost family on New Hanseong. Soldiers who had spent 2 years watching Kelnari atrocities. Officers who remembered what they used to be before the war made them into something else. On Keltar Prime, Emperor Zarmoth prepared for his last stand. The planet's population of 8 billion Kelnari had been conscripted into the defense. Every adult carried weapons. Every child old enough to hold a gun had been given one. My lord, General Vextar reported, the humans have arrived. Their fleet, it's massive. At least 3,000 ships. How many do we have? 800, plus the orbital defenses. Zarmoth's scales darkened. 2 years ago, those numbers would have been more than enough. Kelnari ships were individually superior to anything humans built, but the humans had learned to fight dirty. What about our allies? Surely some species will support us against human aggression? My lord, we have no allies. The other species are either supporting the humans or staying neutral. The truth was worse than that. 3 species had actively joined the human fleet, providing ships and crews. The Vextar remembered their colonies destroyed by Kelnari expansion. The Mordoon had been enslaved by Kelnari raiders for generations. The Kethlin had watched helplessly as their crystal forests were strip-mined for Kelnari weapons. Now they all flew alongside human ships, eager for revenge. The battle began at dawn on Keltar Prime's primary continent, but it didn't start with a direct assault. It started with something the galaxy had never seen before. Dr. Yoon Jiho's latest creation emerged from the human fleet, like a nightmare made real. The UES Prometheus had been upgraded with stellar engineering technology that could manipulate the very forces that powered stars. Target acquired, Dr. Yoon reported from his command ship. Beginning solar destabilization sequence. Keltar Prime's sun was an ordinary yellow star, stable and predictable. In a matter of hours, Dr. Yoon's weapons turned it into an engine of destruction. Massive solar flares erupted from its surface, sending waves of deadly radiation toward the planet. Impossible! Emperor Zarmoth screamed as his palace's radiation detectors went insane. You cannot weaponize a star. But humans could, and they had. The same species that had once peacefully terraformed dead worlds now had the power to kill stars themselves. All defensive fleets attack, Zarmoth ordered desperately. Stop them before they destroy our sun. The Kelnari fleet launched from their hiding places among the orbital fortresses. 800 ships, the last remnant of the once mighty Empire, rushing toward the human formation. They never reached it. Captain Park Sunho commanded the defense screen, 500 human ships supported by 200 allied vessels. As the Kelnari fleet approached, he gave a single order. Remember New Hanseong. The human weapons had improved dramatically over 2 years of war. Quantum torpedoes that could phase through shields, plasma cannons that burned hot enough to melt, armor plating, swarm missiles that split into dozens of smaller warheads. But the most devastating weapons were the captured Kelnari ships. Humanity had reverse-engineered every system, improved every design, and now turned their enemies' own weapons against them. The battle was a massacre. Kelnari ships, designed for individual combat, were overwhelmed by coordinated human tactics. Within 3 hours, the entire defensive fleet was destroyed or captured. My lord, General Vextar reported, his voice shaking. The fleet is gone, all of it. Emperor Zarmoth stared at the tactical displays in disbelief. His empire's finest warriors, the terror of a dozen species, had been wiped out by humans who were supposed to be weak prey animals. Contact the human commander, he ordered. I wish to negotiate surrender terms. My lord, they've refused all previous. Do it! The communication came through to the UES Vengeance, where Captain Kang Minji received it with cold satisfaction. I am Emperor Zarmoth of the Kelnari Empire, the alien ruler said, his scales pale with defeat. I wish to discuss terms for... No, Kang Minji cut him off. Please be reasonable. My planet has 8 billion civilians. Surely you don't intend to... 8 million humans died on New Hanseong. Men, women, children, civilians who never raised a weapon against anyone. Kang Minji's voice was ice. Did you show them mercy? That was different. Admiral Vorthak acted without authorization. Admiral Vorthak acted on your orders. We have the communication records from captured ships. You personally approved the massacre of New Hanseong. Zarmoth's scales went completely white. What do you want from us? Nothing. You have nothing we want. This isn't negotiation. It's execution. The communication ended, leaving Zarmoth staring at a blank screen, but humanity's revenge wasn't finished. As the solar flares from the weaponized star reached Keltar Prime's atmosphere, something else happened. The UES Prometheus began broadcasting on all frequencies, not to the Kelnari, but to the entire galaxy. This is Dr. Yoon Jiho of the Human Research Division. His voice carried across space to millions of listening worlds. What you are about to witness is the consequence of genocide against human civilians. The cameras showed Keltar Prime's surface as the radiation storms hit. Cities went dark as power grids failed. Orbital platforms burned up in the atmosphere. The planet's electromagnetic field fluctuated wildly, creating aurora displays that could be seen from space. The Kelnari Empire chose to teach the galaxy that might makes right, Dr. Yoon continued. Today they learn what human might truly means. But the humans weren't content with just destroying the planet's infrastructure. As Keltar Prime's defenses collapsed, transport ships began landing on the surface. Not to kill, to capture. Colonel Jang Woojin led the ground forces that secured Emperor Zarmoth's palace. The once mighty ruler cowered behind his guards, begging for mercy that would never come. Emperor Zarmoth, Jang Woojin said formally, you are under arrest for crimes against humanity, specifically the genocide of 8 million civilians on New Hanseong. Please, Zarmoth begged, I have children. My offspring are innocent. So were the children you murdered. Jang Woojin's expression didn't change. They will be treated better than you treated ours. They'll be given to alien adoption agencies. They won't even remember being Kelnari. It was a mercy the Kelnari hadn't shown human children. The trials began immediately, not just for the Emperor, but for every Kelnari officer, every government official, every being who had participated in or supported the genocide. Humanity had learned the importance of documentation during their own dark history. Han Si-woo stood as the primary witness in Zarmoth's trial. The young man who had watched his world die now faced the architect of that destruction. Do you recognize these images? The prosecutor asked, showing footage from New Hanseong's destruction. Zarmoth's scales shifted nervously. The military situation required. These are children running from your soldiers. Do you see them? War requires difficult decisions. You personally ordered the hunting of human children for sport. We have the communication records. The trial lasted 6 months. Every atrocity was documented, every victim named, every crime proven beyond doubt. When it ended, the verdict was unanimous. Death, the judge pronounced, to be carried out in the manner used by your forces against human civilians on New Hanseong. Emperor Zarmoth was executed by pulse rifle, the same weapon his soldiers had used against human children. His death was broadcast to the entire galaxy. But even that wasn't the end. The Kelnari species had 8 billion members when the war began. After 2 years of fighting, 5 years after the fall of Keltar Prime, the galaxy lived in fear of humanity. What had started as justice for New Hanseong had become something much darker. The Kelnari Empire was extinct, but the human war machine hadn't stopped. It had grown larger, hungrier, more terrible with each passing year. Colonel Jang Woojin sat in his office on the occupied world of Vornexal, reading reports that made his stomach turn. His forces had just finished processing a refugee camp of former Kelnari civilians, families who had fled the Empire's collapse and tried to start new lives on neutral worlds. Sir, his aide reported, all subjects have been relocated according to Protocol 7. Jang Woojin didn't ask what relocated meant. He already knew. The human fleet had standing orders to hunt down every surviving Kelnari in the galaxy. No exceptions, no mercy, no matter how long they had been in hiding. How many this time? 30,000, sir, including juveniles. 30,000 more names added to humanity's growing list of the dead. The official count had stopped at 50 billion Kelnari killed or disappeared. The real number was probably higher. Sir, the aide continued nervously, there's been another protest on Earth. Professor Kim Dae's group is demanding an end to the purges. Jang Woojin rubbed his tired eyes. Professor Kim led a small group of humans who still remembered what their species had been before the war. They called themselves the Conscience Movement and insisted that humanity's revenge had gone too far. They were probably right. But the galaxy didn't care about right anymore. On Earth, Professor Kim Dae stood before a crowd of 10,000 protesters in Geneva. Once she had been a respected xenobiologist, studying alien cultures and promoting peaceful contact. Now she was branded a traitor by her own government. "We have become the very monsters we once fought," she declared to the crowd. "The Kelnari committed genocide against New Hanseong, yes. But we have responded with genocide against an entire species. How does that make us better than them?" In the crowd, people shifted uncomfortably. Many still remembered the footage from New Hanseong, children running from Kelnari soldiers, families murdered for sport. The desire for revenge burned as hot as ever. "They started this war," someone shouted from the crowd. "They killed our children first, and we've killed 50 billion of theirs," Kim Dai shot back. "When does it end? When every alien species is extinct? When we rule the galaxy through fear alone?" But her words fell on deaf ears. Later that day, Earth's government held a referendum on ending the Kelnari purges. The result was overwhelming. 95% of humanity voted to continue the extermination until every last Kelnari was dead. In his secret laboratory, Dr. Yoon Ji-ho worked on his most terrible creation yet. The memory plague was a quantum virus that could erase a species from reality itself, not just killing them, but making it as if they had never existed in the first place. "Sir," his assistant said nervously, "are you sure about this? If we deploy this weapon, there will be no going back. The Kelnari will be completely erased from history." Dr. Yoon looked up from his calculations. 5 years of war had aged him. Decades. Good, that's exactly what I want. Future generations shouldn't have to remember that such evil existed. But sir, the ethical implications. Ethics? Dr. Yoon laughed bitterly. The Kelnari hunted our children for sport and you're worried about ethics? They forfeited any claim to existence when they decided to commit genocide. The assistant fell silent. Like everyone else in human space, he had seen the footage from New Hanseong too many times to count. It was impossible to argue with the raw horror of what the Kelnari had done. But some humans were beginning to ask uncomfortable questions. Admiral Shin Ji-young commanded humanity's largest fleet, 8,000 ships that patrolled the Outer Rim hunting for Kelnari survivors. She had been fighting for 5 years and the endless killing was starting to wear on her. "Ma'am," her intelligence officer reported, "we've located another group, 50 families hiding on a mining station in the outer territories." Age range? Mixed. Adults, juveniles, some elderly. They've been there for 3 years working as miners, no military connections. Shin Ji-young stared at the tactical display. 50 families, maybe 200 individuals total. They had fled the war, hidden in the deepest corner of space, tried to build new lives far from the conflict. Under current orders, they would all die. "Ma'am? Your orders?" She hesitated. For the first time in 5 years of war, Admiral Shin Ji-young questioned her orders. "Stand by," she said finally. But questioning orders was dangerous in the new humanity. Within hours, political officers from Earth arrived to discuss her hesitation. Admiral Shin, Colonel Park Hyejin said coldly, "Is there some confusion about your mission parameters?" "No confusion, Colonel. I'm simply evaluating the tactical situation." "The tactical situation is simple. Those are Kelnari. Our orders are to eliminate all Kelnari. What is there to evaluate?" Shin Ji-young looked at the younger officer. Park Hyejin had been 15 when New Hanseong was destroyed. She had grown up during the war knowing nothing but hatred for aliens. "They're civilians, Colonel. Non-combatants who have been hiding in exile for years." "They're Kelnari," Park Hyejin repeated. "The species that murdered 8 million humans. The species that hunted our children for entertainment." "Do you need to see the footage again, Admiral?" That was the threat that ended all arguments. The footage from New Hanseong was humanity's ultimate justification for everything they had become. No matter how far they went, how many billions they killed, someone would always play those images of dying human children. "Carry out the mission," Shin Ji-young ordered quietly. The mining station was destroyed 6 hours later. 200 Kelnari died without firing a shot. But news of humanity's endless purges was spreading through the galaxy, and other species were starting to worry. If humans could hunt an entire species to extinction, what would stop them from Turning on other aliens, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. Representatives from 200 species gathered to discuss what many were calling the human problem. "They've gone completely insane," declared the Vextar ambassador. 5 years of genocide, 50 billion dead. When does it end? "When every Kelnari is dead," replied Ambassador Oh Seong-jin. His voice was calm, but his eyes held no warmth. 5 years of war had changed him too. "This is madness." "The Mordun," delegate protested. "You're talking about the complete extinction of an intelligent species." "Yes," Oh Seong-jin said simply, "just like they tried to do to us. The Kelnari are beaten. Their empire is destroyed, their military broken. Why continue the killing?" Oh Seong-jin activated a holographic display. It showed footage from New Hanseong, the same images that had justified 5 years of war. "This is why," he said. 8 million humans dead, children hunted for sport, an entire world turned to glass. Do you think we should simply forgive and forget? The crystalline representative leaned forward. "We understand your anger, Ambassador, but this level of revenge threatens the stability of the entire galaxy. Other species are starting to fear that they might be next." "Good," Oh Seong-jin smiled, and it was a terrible expression. "Fear keeps people honest. Fear prevents another New Hanseong." "You're threatening us?" "I'm explaining reality. Humanity is no longer the weak, peaceful species you once knew. We have become strong. We have become feared. And we have become very, very careful about protecting our own." The session erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted accusations and threats. Some demanded action against humanity. Others begged for compromise. But Oh Seong-jin just sat quietly, watching them argue. When the noise died down, he stood to leave. "You have a choice," he said calmly. "Accept the new reality or try to change it. But remember, we destroyed the Kelnari Empire with conventional weapons. What we're building now makes those look like children's toys." The threat was clear. Humanity had spent 5 years preparing for exactly this moment, when the rest of the galaxy decided they had gone too far. Dr. Yoon's laboratories had produced weapons that could crack planets, sterilize star systems, or erase entire species from existence. Construction swarms had built fleets that dwarfed anything seen before. Military academies had trained officers who knew only war and victory. "If you want to test humanity's resolve," Oh Seong-jin said as he reached the door, "please feel free. We're always happy to demonstrate our capabilities." 3 days later, a coalition fleet of 15,000 ships from 50 species arrived at the edge of human space. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Their message was simple: stop the genocide or face the consequences. Humanity's response came from General Song Kyung himself, broadcast to the entire galaxy. "Coalition forces," he said, his voice steady and cold. "You have assembled to threaten humanity, to force us to abandon our mission of justice for the genocide of New Hanseong." The holographic display behind him showed Earth's defensive installations, orbital fortresses, weapon platforms, and things the galaxy had never seen before. "Let me explain your situation," Song Kyung continued. "Every major population center in coalition space is currently targeted by our long-range weapons. Planet killers, starbreakers, devices that can erase entire solar S. The standoff lasted 6 months. 15,000 coalition ships faced 8,000 human vessels at the edge of human space, while both sides prepared for a war that could destroy the galaxy. But it wasn't fought with weapons. It was fought with fear. Fleet Admiral Kwon Seung-won commanded the human forces from his flagship, the UES Retribution. He was a veteran of the Kelnari War, one of the officers who had learned that sometimes peace required the threat of absolute destruction. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "the coalition is requesting another meeting. They want to discuss terms." Kwon Seung-hwan studied the tactical displays. 6 months of tension had worn down both sides. The coalition had discovered that humanity possessed weapons they couldn't counter. Planet killers hidden throughout their space, automated systems that could strike without warning, technologies that made traditional warfare obsolete. But humans had learned something too. The galaxy was tired of war. 50 billion dead Kelnari had been enough to satisfy most species' appetite for revenge. They wanted the killing to stop. Very well, Quan Sung-wan said finally. But this time, we negotiate from a position of strength. The meeting took place on a neutral station in deep space. Representatives from both sides gathered in a chamber that had once hosted trade negotiations and cultural exchanges. Now it would decide the future of galactic civilization. Ambassador Oh Seong-jin led the human delegation. 7 years of war had changed him from a diplomat into something harder. Across the table sat representatives of 50 species, all united, in their fear of what humanity had become. We propose an immediate ceasefire, the Vextar ambassador began. All military operations to cease while we negotiate a permanent solution. No, Oh Seong-jin said simply. Ambassador, please be reasonable. The Kelnari asked us to be reasonable. They suggested we evacuate 8 million colonists in 72 hours. They promised to spare our children if we surrendered. Oh Seong-jin's voice was ice. How did that work out? The chamber fell silent. Everyone had seen the footage from New Hanseong, but the humans never let them forget it. That was different, the Morden delegate said weakly. The Kelnari were aggressors. You are now the aggressors. We are finishers. Oh Seong-jin corrected. We finish what others start. The Kelnari began a war of extermination against human civilians. We are simply completing their work. In reverse. 50 billion. Dead, the crystalline representative protested. An entire species driven to extinction. How can you justify this? Oh Seong-jin activated a holographic display. It showed a map of the galaxy with every human world marked in blue. Around each world, a red zone indicated the range of humanity's defensive weapons. Justification is simple, he said calmly. Never again will human children be hunted for sport. Never again will our worlds be turned to glass for entertainment. Never again will our species be seen as acceptable targets. The red zones covered 90% of the galaxy. This is madness, whispered the Zephyrian delegate. You're holding the entire galaxy hostage. We prefer to think of it as insurance, Oh Seong-jin replied. Insurance against another New Hanseong. But even as the negotiations continued, events were moving beyond anyone's control. Deep in Kelnari space, the last remnants of their species were making a desperate gamble. On the hidden world of Talarnex, 50,000 Kelnari survivors had gathered under the leadership of General Morthak, Admiral Vorthak's younger brother. They had spent 5 years hiding, watching their species die, planning one final strike against humanity. The humans think they have won, Morthak told his assembled forces. They think we are extinct. That arrogance will be their weakness. In the years since Keltar Prime's fall, the surviving Kelnari had acquired weapons from black market dealers, mercenary groups, and species sympathetic to their plight. Not enough to win a war, but enough for one devastating strike. We cannot save our species, Morthak continued. But we can make the humans pay. We can show the galaxy that we did not. Die quietly. Their target was New Hanseong itself. The world had been rebuilt as a memorial to the dead, populated by the families of survivors and protected by massive orbital defenses. It was humanity's most sacred site, and therefore the perfect target for revenge. The attack came without warning. 50 ships emerged from hyperspace and struck the orbital platforms before they could respond. But these weren't ordinary Kelnari vessels. They had been fitted with quantum bombs capable of cracking the planet's crust. Han Siwoo was visiting the memorial when the attack began. At 25, he had become something of a symbol. The last survivor of the original massacre, now a decorated war hero. He was laying flowers at the monument that bore his family's names when the sky began to burn. Get to the shelters, someone screamed as the orbital platforms exploded overhead. But Han Siwoo didn't run. He stood in the memorial garden, watching Kelnari ships descend through the atmosphere like falling angels of death. For a moment he was 16 again, hiding in the mountains while his world died. The first quantum bomb struck the northern continent. The explosion was visible from orbit, a pillar of fire that reached into space itself. 2 million people died in the initial blast. But the Kelnari weren't finished. As their ships died under human defensive fire, they activated their final weapons. Quantum bombs designed not just to destroy but to poison the very fabric of space-time itself. When the battle ended an hour later, New Hanseong was dying again. The quantum bombs had created reality tears that would expand over time, eventually consuming the entire planet. The world that had been rebuilt as a monument to human determination would become a graveyard once more. Han Siwoo stood in the ruins of the memorial garden, watching rescue ships evacuate the survivors. The monument to the dead had been shattered by the blast, the golden names scattered like leaves in the wind. "Sir," a rescue worker said, "we need to get you out of here. The radiation levels are rising." Han Siwoo looked at the broken monument one last time, then nodded. As his transport lifted off, he made a promise to himself. The Kelnari had just signed their own death warrant. The news of New Hanseong's second destruction reached the peace negotiations within hours. Ambassador Oh Seong-jin received the report in the middle of a discussion about humanitarian corridors for Kelnari refugees. "How many dead?" he asked quietly. 3 million confirmed. Another 5 million missing. The quantum tiers are expanding. We'll have to evacuate the entire planet within the week. The chamber fell silent. The coalition delegates stared in horror as the implications sank in. Any chance of a peaceful resolution had just died with New Hanseong. "Well," Oh Seong-jin said finally, "I think that settles the matter. The Kelnari have just demonstrated why they need to be completely exterminated." "Ambassador," the Vextar representative said desperately, "this was clearly the work of extremists. The majority of surviving Kelnari had nothing to do with this attack. The majority of humans on New Hanseong had nothing to do with the war either. That didn't save them." Oh Seong-jin stood to leave. "The negotiations are over. We gave peace a chance, and the Kelnari responded with another massacre. There will be no mercy now, no quarter, no survival." Within days, humanity's response began. It wasn't the methodical hunting of the past 5 years. It was a furious, systematic extermination that made their previous efforts look gentle. Dr. Yoon Ji-ho's memory plague was deployed for the first time. Entire Kelnari refugee camps simply vanished, erased from reality as if they had never existed. Ships carrying Kelnari civilians disappeared from sensor records, their crews forgetting they had ever existed. Han Siwoo personally led the hunt for General Morthak and his surviving forces. It took 3 months to track them down to their hidden base on Talarnex, but when he found them, the revenge was swift and terrible. "General Morthak," Han Siwoo said, as human marines dragged the Kelnari leader before him. "Do you remember me?" The alien's scales were pale with fear and exhaustion. "You're the survivor, the one from the first attack. I'm the witness, the one who recorded your people's crimes, the one who has spent 10 years making sure the galaxy never forgets what you did." Han Siwoo drew his sidearm, the same type of pulse rifle that Kelnari soldiers had used to murder human children. "This is for New Hanseong, both times." The execution was broadcast live to the entire galaxy. With Morthak's death, organized Kelnari resistance collapsed. The few thousand survivors scattered to the deepest corners of space, hunted by human forces and automated systems that would never stop, never rest, never forget. But the galaxy had seen enough. The coalition of 15,000 ships that had come to stop humanity's genocide found themselves facing a choice: accept the wide